We're here today talking with author Kaleema Ameen about her book, Hidden in Plain Sight. Are You Being Groomed for Love Bombing, Spirit Breaking, and Abandonment? Thank you so much for taking time to join us, Kaleema.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the invite.
Why don't we start? Just give us a little bit of an overview and talk a little bit about your book.
My book, Hidden in Plain Sight, exposes the 9 red flags that you're being groomed for abuse. And that is all sorts of abuse: mental abuse, psychological abuse, um, emotional, spiritual, and financial abuse. All of these are pretty much the gateway to physical abuse. And so that is what I attempted to do in my book, is to analyze the process, the policy, the procedure that people use to groom others for this sort of abuse. Because I'm a policy analyst by profession, it was an easy way for me to explore this process. And I interviewed women who were African American, Caucasian, South American, Muslim, Christian, Jewish, I'm sorry, not Jewish, Muslim, Christian, and Catholic, about their experiences. And there was definitely, a policy and a procedure that, came forward. And I was able to categorize that into the 3 steps, the love bombing, spirit breaking, and abandonment. And so that is what my book covers. That's what it exposes, this diabolical process, and in hopes of helping others to avoid, what I went through.
So all across this, it was a broad spectrum of women that you talked about in different groups and different categories, and you kind of saw some common things and use those. So is that kind of what your inspiration was and kind of the process behind writing it, or what was was it more of a specific moment in time for you that you would point to your inspiration, or was it this process of gathering and talking to other women?
It was definitely a moment in time. It was a very traumatic event that even caused me to research this process. Um, my son and I were abandoned by my husband at the time on a family vacation, and it was totally unexpected, out of the blue. And he just walked off from the vacation. And, there's a long story behind it, but then I started to like wonder, like, how do people just do this and disappear? And we're not talking about people who are, transient or on the outskirts of the community. We're talking about people who seem to be established, in their family, in the community, in their religious community as well, established, career wise. And I found out, the more I talked about it, the more women said, oh, yes, that happened to me, or that happened to my sister, that happened to my mother, that happened to my daughter. And as I said, since I'm a policy analyst, I'm always digging and researching and want to know why things happen. And so that's how I ended up, while I was in therapy and counseling, I just started researching, like, how many women and children are abandoned, and why are they abandoned, and how does this happen? Is it abrupt? And so once I started researching it, it led me to narcissism. And it talked about how this type of abandonment, just ghosting and disappearing from the entire family, is something that is a common trait, of narcissists. And I know that word is used a lot now, but we're talking about not people who just have narcissistic tendencies, but people who have narcissistic personality disorder. And I did, go into depth in my book about how to distinguish between the tendencies and the actual disorder, and how we can protect ourselves from these types of people.
Wow, really, really thorough. You can tell you've spent a lot of time and talked to a lot of women and unfortunately experienced it yourself. But thank you for sharing with us. And again, Kaleema's book, Hidden in Plain Sight, you can grab a copy. It's available through her publisher, Fulton Books. It's also available online through Amazon. You can get a paperback or an ebook form through Amazon, through Barnes and Noble, the Books app on iTunes. But before we wrap up our conversation today, I want to give you one last chance, Kaleema. Anything else you want to share with our audience about yourself, about your research or your book?
Yes, I do want to share with the audience that my book is not just for women. It's also for men. It's for men who have women in their family, their daughters and sisters and aunts and nieces and friends, that they want to protect from this grooming process. And so that is one thing that I definitely want to make clear, because oftentimes people think that this is just, a book for women. And the other thing I want to add is that I did have 17 of my 25 beta readers, they were men, because I wanted to make sure that men did not feel villainized by the book before I even sent it to Fulton. And I wanted to make any changes if there were any. And I wanted to make sure that men did feel also that they were supported by the book. And I did get, a round of applause from those 17 men, and I chose kind of randomly based on their occupation, if they were married or single. But I did want to definitely make sure that people know that this is not a man bashing book, and it is a book that's helpful to men as well as to women.
Yeah, and also have great reviews on Amazon from readers as well.
Oh, thank
So
you.
thank you so much for taking time to share with us today. And again, grab a copy of Kaleema's book, Hidden in Plain Sight, Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Books app on iTunes. Kaleema, thank you so much for taking time to talk with us today.
Thank you, Scott.
Have a great day.
You too.